welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Royal Enfield 450 Himalayan. Fantastic motorcycle. A friend of mine, Alex, has asked if he could bring down his loan bike from Royal Enfield to make some comparisons to the motorcycle that we actually bought a number of months back to carry out some development on. So we're going to look at the differences between the stock model and what you can make the bike to. Not that it's necessary, that bike will do everything you ask it to with a change of tyres, but we're a performance centre, we modify bikes, and this is what we like to do, and there's plenty of people out there that like to do the same thing. Starting at the rear of the bike, we can see that this motorcycle's got the stock modification in the rally race kit, or the rally rear end. So as you can see, it replaces the toe part saddle with a single piece rally saddle. In all honesty, this saddle is not as comfortable as the stock saddle, certainly the comfort saddle that Alex has got on his bike over there. But, you know, from a being able to move around the bike when you're off-road, this is a much needed upgrade. You'll do miles on it, but it's certainly not as comfortable as that saddle over there. However, the rear end really does set it apart. I really like this rear end. When you look at the profile of this motorcycle, put it next to my T7 that I've got in there, you know, they've really taken inspiration, I feel, with this back end, and it looks fantastic. Really nice job from Royal Enfield there. We have reintroduced the standard rack on the back. You can leave it off, looks pretty trick, but you know, when you're off adventure riding as well as doing a little bit of green laning, you know, it is important to have this rack on here. As you can see with Alex's stock bike over there, he's got the pannier racks on that as well. They're really not very intrusive when you haven't got the panniers on, so you can just pop them off, go and hit the trails, and you know, the bike will behave as well as it ever going to, and you've got something extra to grab onto when you've got to pick it off the floor, which is great. So sticking with the back of the bike here, we can see that we've actually done away with the standard tyres and we've gone to the Metas tyre. This particular tyre is the Enduro Trail XT Plus. It's a fantastic tyre. It's the same tyres I run on my T7. I absolutely adore them. They're not super expensive. They do good mileage and off-road grip, fantastic. You know, I've done enduros on my T7 and it's never really let me down with these tyres, so well worth doing. We do, as you can see, have the tubeless rims on this motorcycle. We have done away with the tubeless function and gone 2 tubes, just because for me, you know, having that ability to drop pressures right down low and then, you know, pump them back up without risk of popping it off a bead, and also, you know, the protection against puncture. When you've got 2 layers of rubber there, it is only going to give you extra protection. We run the 4mm tube as well, so adds a bit of weight on, but over the stock tyres, the overall package is a lot lighter. We'll get onto weight in a minute. So sticking with the rear of the bike, you can see here that we've replaced the standard silencer with the HP Corsa silencer and link pipe combination. So this link pipe combination, it removes the rear catalytic or the catalytic converter from the motorcycle, which is really quite a weight. I didn't weigh it off. We do have the components upstairs to weigh that particular item off, but I can assure you the weight saving, you know, it's in the region of sort of 4 kilos minimum that we've saved on the exhaust system by replacing this system with this. Whilst at the back here, you can see that we've also removed the centre stand from the bike. Centre stand weight is quite heavy. You're talking 2.5 kilos of weight there. I don't run a centre stand on my T7. It's just an unnecessary weight. You know, it's all about weight for me with these big bikes. You know, when you're trying to pick them off the ground, you know, you really do notice every kilo.
Hang on.
3, 2,
1, 2, up!
Found a first
weakness. There we go. Oops. Just kick him back.
That's fantastic. Flexible gear levers. So once you've introduced an aftermarket exhaust system, doesn't matter what bike it is, you really do have to get the fueling corrected. Even stock motorcycles these days, to get around their Euro compliance requirements, they are fueled very lean in the first 40% of throttle range. So that's why a lot of modern bikes are really snatchy and horrible. You know, you go around a roundabout, middle of winter, looking over your shoulder, trying to check your blind spot to get off that roundabout. You hook the throttle and it's a bit snatchy, jerky, horrible. With fueling, aftermarket fueling methods, you can tune that out quite simply, and it's not just on ETV, it's done on the actual fueling. It's a leanness that these motorcycles are running. Electronic throttle valve is the ETV. So the leanness that modern motorcycles have to run for their Euro compliance requirements, it makes the combustion temperatures very, very hot. The wear on the engine is increased. It's not massive, you know, but over a period of time, to have a bike fueled, you know, more as God intended, it's the correct way to operate an internal combustion engine, and they're going to last as long as they possibly can by doing that. But for us, it's all about getting, you know, good rideability, good throttle response, and making the most of what this engine can produce. So to do that, we've introduced 2 fueling methods. You'll never get away from the lower end lambda-controlled closed loop fueling solution with this motorcycle. So you have to introduce what's called a FuelX or FuelX Pro. The item that we've got here is a FuelX Pro, and that allows us to select between 10 fueling maps, between richer and leaner. We can stick the bike on the dyno, we have a luxury of that here, and we can check the air-fuel ratio, trimming that fuel to get it as perfect as we want it to be. There's various theories around it. We always like to punch for, you know, sort of a 13 to 1, 13.2 to 1, but you know, you can go as lean as sort of 14 to have your perfect AFR, but what that's going to do, it'll give you better endurance down the bottom, but for us, it doesn't produce as good a throttle response, smoother throttle response results. So we punch a little bit richer. Once you've got away from that closed loop fueling area, we're going to move into the wide open throttle stuff. So with that, we're going to have to be mapping with another product, which is from the same vendor, and that is the Powertronics V4. So this product here allows us to hook up with our computer, with a software from Powertronics, and we can carry out full custom mapping on this bike and get the fueling as near perfect as we possibly can with this product. Quite involved in installing this. You know, it's not beyond the hobbyist, that's for sure. But when it comes to actually setting it up, it comes with a stock map, which is pretty good. But if you want it absolutely perfect, you will have to install it or bring it to a dyno sensor of some sort to have that mapped out. When you do install this system, coupled with this link pipe, you will be removing the rear lambda sensor. That rear lambda sensor is a cat condition sensor, so it tells you the condition of your catalytic converter. By removing that O2 sensor, you do have to install a ballast in there so that it can see a circuit on the heater side of the O2 sensor, so it doesn't throw up an EFI light, which is an engine fault indicator. So to do that, there's no open market product. We actually had to make our own for this, using quite a heavy duty resistor, 30 watt I think it was. That system seems to work quite fine. We've done about 400 miles on it now with no EFI lights coming up. So we're quite happy that that's a pretty permanent solution.
Bit sketchy. I'll follow you. Thanks.
So moving away from the performance modifications, we've got the suspension modifications. So this is the latest mod that we've done to the bike. We've installed here the K-Tech Razor rear shock, which is a fantastic British-made product, readily available. You know, these guys are so well supported in the UK now. There's plenty of other suspension products out there, but for me, you know, one of the best UK supported products is K-Tech. You know, we're very pleased to be working with them on that. So that's what that's done is it's given us a 35mm shock, bore cylinder shock, lots and lots of support, lots of damping control in there. It's not a piggyback, you know, it doesn't have a remote reservoir, so you don't have compression damping, but you do have rebound damping, which is an improvement over the stock setup. Similarly, with that stock setup, the weight gain over this standard shower shock compared to the K-Tech shock is significant. You hold the two products and, you know, there's such a massive difference in the weight of those two products. So I strongly recommend that. If you're chasing weight, I strongly recommend it if you're chasing performance and, you know, rideability. And then finally, the suspension mods that we've carried out is the valving kit and spring upgrade in the forks. So one of these forks, you've got a spring. One of the forks, you've got the damping system, both rebound and compression. So we've modified both sides. We've uprated our spring rate suitable to the rider that we want to be pitching for, and we've increased the damping capability, performance capability in the system by installing the K-Tech aftermarket valving system. And it's given the bike so much more support on the front. You know, you can really, well, we're hoping today we're going to test it, but we're really going to be able to push the limits of the front of this bike, you know, burying it into some ditches with no fear of bottoming it out. You know, the porpoising effect that you can get over the whoops and ruts, that's all going to be eliminated now with this aftermarket product, but we'll feed back on that later, and we'll be feeding back to K-Tech if it needs improvement. But it has been tested and they're quite happy with it. I trust their judgment. Other modifications that we've carried out, we've installed the bark busters. There is an OEM version which you can fit, which first time I've seen it today. It looks just as good, you know. It does seem to be a cast aluminium finish, which obviously leads to potential brittleness issues, whereas with the bark busters, you know, it's an extruded section of aluminium that's been bent to form, so it's going to have a little bit more give in it. You know, it's going to be able to be manipulated back into shape if you do hit it that hard. But man, I've never bent a bark buster, so you know, we've got all faith in this product. Similarly, between the two motorcycles, we've got the aftermarket screen, which is a slightly larger screen, gives you a little bit more protection when you're doing those road sections between your green lanes. Is it going to give you much? I don't know, but it's pretty cool looking, so well worth doing just because it looks cool. And then the headlamp protection on both motorcycles here, an absolute must. You know, these modern LED headlamps are really super expensive, so you know, when you're bashing through the brush, all it takes is a whip of a branch, or you know, hitting a big old log, and then you've damaged that beyond being able to be certified for an MOT or something like this. While we're looking at the front of the bike here, and we have carried out a lower fender delete. Lots of feedback on Alex's previous video about this, which has been greatly received. We were mindful of the fact that you do have the loop over on the brake hose. We are waiting for a new hose to come, just a single piece hose to come from the ABS pump. However, for the time being, as you can see, we've rerouted that hose, brought it round here. Still a little bit exposed, but no more than the bike is hanging out. But it keeps it out of that tyre track, so any stones or mud or branches being flung up by the tyre shouldn't be affected. But we'll have some better routing, which is more common to the single disc setup moving forward. So finally, we're going to move to the lower end of the motorcycle to look at the mods that we've carried out here. We've got, similar to Alex's bike over here, we have the aftermarket Radguard, which is available from Royal Enfield. We also have the Royal Enfield provided aftermarket sump guard as well, with side engine protection. Quite important to have some kind of sump protection over the OEM setup. If you see, there's very minimal protection on this bike. Alex has got the extended engine protectors as well on this bike. They're slightly wider than the product that we have, but they'll be doing a good job. But yeah, strongly recommend some sump protection here. And then finally, a little homemade mod. The motorcycle leans ridiculously far on the side stand. You know, we've deleted the centre stand. The centre stand is particularly difficult to operate for getting it off. Easy to get on, but quite difficult to get off. So we've removed that stand from this bike in the interest of trying to save some weight. But with that side stand, it leans over so far. You know, lifting it off the sand is just a nausea and unnecessary. I believe it's an American homologation requirement for you to be able to park the bike with a stand uphill or something like this. So we've modified that. Very simple modification. Used a little bit of dowel rin, sort of 50mm dowel rin, turned it down 25mm, so we've got an inch of extra leg lift, drilled a hole for it, tapped it M8, countersunk a bolt in, and away you go. Bolt in and away you go. So yeah, real simple mod. You know, it's not going to stand up well in the mud for sure, but we'll be leaning it against trees if that's the case. And that's about it, really.